that make sense? Now, from a bit personally about me, you've already said I love walking and hiking, and I got into that very recently. And I think, Kate, your speech was inspirational. I don't think I'm ever going to get across a desert. But that, we've got to talk after me about exercise, but sometimes that is incredibly important. We underestimate why that's so important for our well-being. And it's about some basic things that we don't think about, for example, like moving our arms and legs at the same time. That parallel motion helps regulate our feelings. It also helps our heart and our cardiac and releasing dopamine, which is a feel-good chemical. And the relationships you form on walks, the relationships you form while cycling or whatever you're doing, are actually much stronger because you are exercising together. It gives you a more intense relationship with the person that you're walking alongside. And often people find that, which is why people keep going back, don't they, Kate, to charity events, because it's something about being together and connecting. And being here today, that's very much what you're doing. So for me, I love walking. I love my dog. I'm very fond of her, and I can't wait to see her when I get home. And I started developing an interest in yoga about 10 or 12 years ago when my neck started hurting and I felt stuck and I felt overwhelmed. What was I going to do to help myself? I also love junk television. I absolutely love junk television to switch off, and I'm a particular fan of RuPaul Drag Race. Now, how many people's minds were expecting that? How many are now predicting, do you dress up in drag? No, even though sometimes I'm so tall, people say, are you a man, when they don't look at me properly? And I'm like, that's a bit rude. But our minds make all sorts of predictions about people when we meet them. That's what they're trained to do. They're survival tools. And I'm hoping today I'm going to show you that all your minds are working beautifully in coping with this watch and wait, but they're not always working for you. And that's what I'm going to try and help you, give you some signposting towards what support might be available going forward. Is that all right with everyone? Now, my mind's panicking because I've got to press a button and hope it all works. We'll see how it goes. It's not going well so far. Oh, is it on there? No?
Yep.
Right,
Yep.
we're there. So you guys are experts at living with the impact of cancer. You've already had that diagnosis. What does that mean for me? Who am I? And some of these thoughts will be very familiar. The word cancer turned my life upside down. I felt like everything I loved was suddenly being thrown out the window. These are real quotes from people. I was devastated. Couldn't believe it's true. What did it mean for me, my family, and my future? And you said that so beautifully, Kate, today. And I actually got very emotional myself when I saw your little boy and thinking of going to university. But it's an important time, isn't it, that transition? It's like a roller coaster. Just when you think you've got the hang of it, you've got another big dip. I think I'm all right, I know where I am, and then something happens again. The multiple admissions you might have, or the checking in, or the next appointment, or the scan anxiety. It takes time to get used to the ups and downs after a diagnosis of CLL. I'm not usually a worrier. I don't think that's true necessarily. I think all of us have things we worry about in life, but it's not something that keeps our mind turning over. But once I had my diagnosis, I thought, if I can get cancer, what else can happen? When will it get worse? Will the treatment work? How will I know if it's going to come back or not? I need more treatment. How long will I live? They're big questions, and they're questions that most of us don't think about. We just get on with our lives. Now, they will touch some buttons for you. And there's a general sense that we should be able to control our thoughts and feelings. That's what we're told as society. Painful thoughts and feelings are bad. We want to get rid of them. We don't like them. We don't want to feel unhappy. We don't want to feel sad. We don't want to feel lonely. We want to feel content. And has everybody got the magic answer to that before your diagnosis? Was everybody very happy and content? Or did you have things that challenged you? You're thinking, I'm not going to say because she'll make me do it. She's a psychologist. She's probably reading my mind, which I am not. But we have this sense of society that painful thoughts and feelings are bad. And people give us the best advice when they're trying to care for us, when they're trying to be compassionate. They say, no, you need to think of the positives. Why are you worrying about that? You don't need to think about it. Concentrate on it today. How well has it happened when somebody said to you, just think positive, you're fine now? Some of your faces are smiling. And you're like, brilliant, I hadn't thought of that one. Brilliant. But those thoughts come back, don't they? Just don't think about it, concentrate on today. It's very hard to stay in today for any mind. Our minds are constantly whirling to the future and going to the past. They don't stay in the present very often, which is why mindfulness can be incredibly important to help you anchor you in that present moment. It's best not to dwell. Well, of course it is. But we wouldn't be doing it if we had a choice, would we? And lots of people are very, very kind. They've gone on Professor Google. I love the way you updated Google from doctor to professor. I thought that was brilliant. 70% of people survive for this with yours, so no need to be worried. I'm like, okay, but this is my life here, and I'm absolutely worried. And I know you're trying to do it from a caring, compassion way. And we've done it ourselves for other people that we love because we want them to feel okay. We don't want them to be worried. We want them to feel better. You just have to keep going. Yes, but that's tough. It's really tough. And this one is trite, but it's not meant to be. My friend ate carrots and her cancer disappeared. The amount of people that will come to you because they want it to go for you. They'll come up with, I've read this study, I've done this, have you tried that? What about this? And it's all things that we try and do to help us cope. They're trying to do it in a kind way. You need to be strong. And I would always say that anybody sitting in this room is strong because you've come to face your fears. You've come to talk about conversations. You'll keep moving forward. You're trying to be you in the face of cancer. Strength is not about not having difficult thoughts and feelings. Strength is about having difficult thoughts and feelings and continuing to be you anyway and continuing to be moved forward. That's what I call real strength. And you can fight this. Now, everybody has their own personal relationship with the word fight in cancer. I prefer not to have that word myself because when I talk to people, they say, I don't want to be in a fight with myself. A fight implies you can win if you're strong enough, and that's not true. It's about doing what you can do to take control and look after yourself while you're coping with what your body's doing. And I'm going to show you a little cartoon that a guy called Russ Harris has done. I'm hoping it's going to work, but it'll illustrate why your minds are doing what they're doing. They're in survival mode. Now, do I press play or does it automatically do it?
I think if you scroll to the... Yeah.
The human mind has evolved to think in such a way that it naturally creates psychological suffering. You see, back in the Stone Age, 200,000 years ago, life was pretty dangerous for our caveman ancestors. So if a caveman or cavewoman wanted to survive, their minds had to constantly be on the lookout for things that might hurt or harm them. And if that cave person's mind wasn't good at predicting, spotting, or avoiding danger, what happened to her? The default setting of the caveman mind was safety first, and we in the modern world have inherited this. Our modern minds are constantly warning us of things that might hurt or harm us. The caveman mind says, watch out, there might be a bear in that cave, you could get eaten. Watch out, that shadow on the horizon might be an enemy from another clan, you could get speared. Our modern mind then does worrying, predicting the worst, avoiding anything that scares you, anxiety in all of its different forms. Back in caveman days, you survive an encounter with a bear or a wolf, then it's useful to replay it. It's useful for your mind to go over the events and remember what you did to survive so that you're better prepared for next time. But in our modern world, we go over and over painful memories, dwelling on them, reliving them, even when there's nothing useful to learn or a lesson has been well and truly learned a long time ago. In the Stone Age era, as a caveman or cavewoman, you have to fit in with the group. If you are alone, you will soon die. So your mind compares you to others in the group. Am I fitting in? Am I contributing enough? Am I following the rules? Am I doing anything that might get me thrown out? Now, in modern life, we're always comparing ourselves to others. But the problem is we're no longer in a small group. Our groups are enormous today, and we carry with us devices that constantly feed us images and stories of people all over the planet. This constant comparison ramps up our fear of being judged or rejected or not fitting in or just not being good enough. The caveman mind tells you you need more food, you need more water, better weapons, better shelter. The cave people who thought this way lived longer and had more offspring. Unfortunately, in the modern world, this manifests as greed, dissatisfaction, craving, wanting. It's never enough. I need more, more, more. And if all of that wasn't bad enough, these Stone Age thought patterns are intensified by the sheer pace and complexity of modern life. Our frantic existence, rushing from task to task, that never-ending to-do list. So, when your mind starts doing this unhelpful stuff, as all minds do, remember it's not defective or abnormal, and it's not deliberately trying to make your life difficult. It's simply doing the job it has evolved to do, trying to keep you safe and save you from pain.
Does that resonate with people? People seen that before? It's really painful. All our minds do this. All our minds. My mind, your mind, your mind, your mind. It's what they're designed to. It's why we're so successful as a species. We are trained to be able to notice threat, to be able to deal with it quickly, to keep ourselves safe, to learn from that in the past and predict scenarios in the future where it might happen again. And generally it works for us. The difficulty is that, has anybody seen a saber-toothed tiger crawling around the Welsh valleys? There was a bobcat once, but we don't have those type of threats. And what becomes threatening is not those primeval things where our mind was developed to resource itself and to keep ourselves safe. We start to get very overwhelmed by our own thoughts and feelings. They become the threat. They become overwhelming. And if we don't like them, I don't want to have cancer. What will I be okay? What's going on? What about my children? Those thoughts are really painful. Our own minds start to turn on us. And we start to battle. We start to get in a struggle. We start to try and figure out how to get rid of those thoughts, how to avoid having them. And there's lots and lots of strategies and things that you will do day in, day out. We all do them. So I'm just going to open it up and you can share. So we use distraction. So have you ever tried to distract yourself from thoughts? I mean, I've just talked about watching RuPaul on the TV and something comes in and it's like, oh, why did they mention cancer? But any other distraction techniques that you use? Meditation, yeah. Mindfulness. And it's important because meditation and mindfulness are really important if you're not trying to distract yourself from your thoughts. So some people go into mindfulness and meditation wanting to get rid of or control their thoughts. If you go in with that sense, then you're going to fail because your mind after 10 minutes will get bored. You've trained for years and years and years as a Buddhist to be able to meditate for a long period. And it's a real skill. But eventually you have to stop meditating because if you don't, what's going to happen? I'm looking. Your problem hasn't gone away. So you've created a safe space for yourself and it's a really important skill. But when you stop meditating, you're back in life again. So it's about that flexibility. Any other distraction techniques?
Walking.
Yeah, walking. I just going out, I don't want to think about it. Or listening to music, reading. Yeah. What happens after a while, though, when you try and use those strategies? You try distraction. What eventually happens?
Get bored.
Yeah, you get bored. Your mind then goes, hang on a minute, there could be a danger out there. I better just scan the environment and then notices those thoughts again. So absolutely.
So your physiological needs come into place. You're going to have to go to the loo.
Yeah.
Phone room.
Yep.
Or you need to eat, you need to drink.
Yeah.
So you can't just sort of sit there in your little bubble.
No.
You have to do the things that you need to sustain life.
Yeah, and I'm going to illustrate that in a very practical way in a minute, so that's beautiful. And I think sometimes the things that we think are good distraction actually they end up coming up biting us on the bottom. So you watch something and then somebody has a diagnosis of cancer and you're thinking, I just watched that. Or the advert comes up, or the colour green. So I worked with Macmillan for a very long time and I associate the colour green with Macmillan and that comes on for me straight away, my mind goes cancer and then back again. So there's all sorts of things that happen. And sometimes it really surprises you. So you might be in a really lovely event that you're really enjoying and then suddenly your mind goes, ouch, I might not be here, or that's really important to me. Okay, and so it's really difficult. But often the times that are most joyous are also become the most painful, very bittersweet. And leading on to that is another strategy we'll use is opting out. So if you're really struggling with a situation, I can't talk to that person because they're going to want to ask me about it, so you avoid having that conversation with them. Or an activity you used to love that your body's not letting you do anymore. You talk really openly, Kate, about nights out. I was thinking, no, I need to take you on a night out now. You're going back. We'll manage your energy. But there's a big loss. So you opt out of things because you can't do them. And then that brings up difficult thoughts and feelings for you. Thinking your way out of them. All sorts of strategies that we use. Worrying, blaming, thinking positive, planning, self-criticism, scenarios. Whatever we do, we're trying to get rid of these thoughts and feelings. Is this relating for you? Yeah, we do it all the time and it's endless and we've got and the more you practice, the more skills you get. You're going to see why you're going to get stuck in a minute. And then we've got the last ones, which can be tricky. I'm a big fan of cake, is food, medication, risky behaviour and sleep. So it's substances really. So medication can be really helpful, pain management can be really helpful, but then it can trip. And you can take too much pain medication to try and manage it because it makes you feel better. Or if I ate too much cake and didn't climb enough mountains, I'd be struggling with my weight. Or if I was, I also like a sneaky glass of wine. I'm conscious this has been recorded only on my own time. But if you had a glass of wine to help you cope with your feelings, then you need a bit more and you need a bit more and a bit more. And you can end up with a problem. So some of our strategies are really, really helpful if we use them in the short term. But if we kept using them, they're not helpful. And if you've got thoughts about cancer and the impact of that in your life and who you are, those thoughts keep coming back. So eventually you're going to get stuck. If we tell our minds to shut up and they do, we've lost the most valuable thing for us as human beings, recognizing what the challenge we're facing is and how we could deal with it and what it means to us. If we think positive, which we'd love to do, we also lose that information and we can no longer structure our lives and make sure it means something to us. So we are designed to keep that negative thoughts and feelings, and I don't call them negative, I call them unhelpful, because sometimes they are very helpful. Sometimes we need to know when there's a threat. You need to know to go for your scan. It's scary to go in a few weeks, isn't it? But you're going to go because it matters to you. And you do that all the time. If you just listened to your thoughts and stayed at home, that's going to get in the way of... I'm sorry not to have checked with you before, Kay, but you were so open and honest on the stage. But it's really important that we change our relation, because otherwise we're in a battle with ourselves. And we're wasting our energy when we can be putting it towards other stuff. Not necessarily climbing across the desert, which is... yeah. But what we're doing is trying to create a choice. Rather than going into automatic pilot and just responding to these thoughts and feelings, and we get hooked in, if you can see on the left, into using our distraction or opting out of thinking strategies without even thinking about it. We need to take a pause and think, is that right for me? And that's where meditation and mindfulness are incredibly helpful, because they help you be present, in the present moment, thinking, what's showing up for me right now? Is this new thoughts and feelings that I need to be aware of and do something about? If so, do something. Or is this familiar stuff that's very painful? I need to breathe and then move towards doing something that matters, to take control of your arms and legs and drop the struggle. Like when the clipboard went down, you could choose whether to engage with that. And that's what you were saying really beautifully about that illustration of, there they are, and here's me. Does that make sense? I'm whistle-stopping through quite a lot of flipping your mind. So I'm going to ask everybody to volunteer now. Where's your mind gone? You're really delighted? No? You don't have to move and you don't have to say anything, but I'm going to just try something that would be very familiar to those. Hands up, how many people have done mindfulness in the room? How's it working for you? Yeah? Helpful? And it's really powerful, because what it does is it enables you to pull away from your automatic stream of consciousness mind that just keeps throwing information at you all the time, to pull up into a space where you can notice what's showing up. Okay? And when I first did mindfulness, I was very frustrated, because my mind's a very busy mind. And I wanted it just to be quiet. I wanted to control it. And this lovely woman, who's a Buddhist, was teaching me with fluffy socks. By the end of it, I wanted to scream at her, going, this is not working for me. But actually, for me, connecting mindfulness or meditation with ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, goes, okay, here is me. Here are my thoughts and feelings. What can I do? How do I want to use that information to direct what I want to take forward? So what I'm going to teach you today is a technique called dropping anchor, or ACE, which stands for acknowledge what's showing up in your internal world, connect with your body in some way, so that grounds you. That'd be very familiar for you that have done mindfulness. And then extend your awareness to the outside world, and that's when you're going, okay, here I am, and what am I going to do? What's right for me? Rather than being caught up in that struggle with, I've got to get rid of those thoughts and feelings. Are people willing to give it a go? Yeah? So everybody just rest your eyes on a spot. I'm not going to stare at you, I'm going to look at the screen. Or close them gently, that's sometimes nicer. And get yourself comfy in the chair. Maybe put both feet on the floor. Straighten the back. Just relax your shoulders a bit. And I'm just going to ask you to silently and kindly just notice, as if you're a curious scientist, what's going on in your internal world. What sort of thoughts are around? What sort of pictures? What sort of memories? What feelings have you got? And what physical sensations? Maybe you notice thoughts of, I'm hungry, or what am I doing? Maybe there's memories of doing something similar like this before. Maybe your mind's taken to somebody that you love. Maybe it's worrying about what other people are thinking of you. Maybe you notice that you're feeling uncomfortable in your chair. So just notice what thoughts, images, memories, emotions and sensations are present. And as you do that, I invite you at the same time to connect with your body in some way. Maybe push your feet into the floor. Maybe notice how your back is fully supported by the chair. Maybe notice how your hands feel if they're linked together. Remember, you're not trying to get rid of those thoughts or internal sensations. Just notice them and at the same time connect with your body in some way. And then I invite you to just expand your awareness into the world around you. Just notice 5 things that you can hear. Maybe the sound of your person sitting next door to you breathing. Maybe your own breath. Maybe you can hear the air conditioning. Just notice. Then invite you again to just acknowledge whatever's showing up for you in your internal world. What physical sensations? What thoughts? Maybe the same ones you had before, maybe different ones have shown up. What memories are around? What images? Just notice. And at the same time, connect with your body. Maybe take a deep breath. Maybe hold your hands together. And again, expand your awareness into the room around with the sounds that you can hear. Again, I invite you to go back in and acknowledge whatever's showing up for you. Without judgment, just notice. Connect with your body by shrugging your shoulders, maybe wiggling in your seat. And then gently open your eyes and look around you and find 5 things in the room that you haven't seen before. And just notice something about their detail. Okay. All right, and then come back together. What was that like? What did you notice? Was it easy? What did you notice? I'm looking at you, Phil. You meditate, so that's probably quite straightforward for you. But what do people know? Was that easy? Was your mind wandering? Was it easy to stay on task? Did it go and think about what you were having for lunch? The exercise of ACE is not about being calm. It's nice if it comes. It's about being aware. So actually, I very clearly said, notice what's showing up in your head, connect with your body at the same time. So it's not a distraction technique. If you don't do both at the same time, you're using distraction, and your mind will get bored, and it will start to remind you, hang on a minute, what about that thought? Okay. So it's a beautiful, the 4 breathing is brilliant, isn't it? But if you're using it to get rid of what's in there, then you've got hooked back in to using distraction. If you're using it as a way of acknowledging here, and I'm here, and then I can do, then it's ACE. That's a lovely example. Now, I'm trying to do acceptance and commitment therapy in 40 minutes, which is virtually impossible. But what it works towards is this model about psychological flexibility. So it's the skills that we all want to cultivate. We're really good at problem solving, sorting, survival mind, getting on with it. But what we find much more difficulty is to roll with what you guys are dealing with day in, day out, which is a mind that is trying to remind you that there's a constant threat. And it's trying to get that, and it's getting in the way of you living. And the more you can develop the skills to move between, okay, there you are, thanks, mind, for reminding me, and back in my life. Thank you, back in my life. Oh, yeah, I know I do need to go to the appointment. It's moving between those positions, and ACT really helps you develop those skills. So there's the be present, grounding, there's the open up, and there's some really helpful skills that you can use to give you more space from your thoughts and feelings. Mindfulness sometimes doesn't give you enough, and when they're really, really painful, you need to just be able to pull back. And then there's do what matters, and that's the really important thing for me. That's about acknowledging, and you said that really beautifully, Kate. You pulled back and thought, what matters to me? Who do I want to be? What do I want to stand for in my life? And then I'm going to act according to those values, not be pulled up, wasting my time trying to distract my thoughts, to get rid of those feelings, avoid people and situations that are bringing that up for me. So you can't control your thoughts and feelings, but what you can do is control your actions when they show up. And that's what's so powerful, when you feel that that's been taken away from you. Now, Hilary showed me a fantastic app that you've got actually created, which I think we ought to share at the end of this. But there are some great resources. So we've got the CLL support. I don't know if it's linked across. Is it the app website that you've created?
You can get to it from the
Yeah.
website.
But I would also suggest Macmillan, Turn of Us Cancer Care and Maggie's, all fantastic resources that you highlighted. People might not be familiar with the Mellow Cymru course as well. There's a Living with Uncertainty course on there. It's a slightly different model to Russ Harris's, which is my preference, but it's a good model too. And if you are struggling with overwhelming thoughts and feelings, and some of them are very, very, very painful, and you need to act on them, then reach out to get help from 111. Okay, that's really important. Sometimes those thoughts are too painful for you to handle by yourself, and you need help. And it's really important that you hear that when you're doing that from a place of from strength and wanting to build your skills, rather than I'm not coping. It's I want someone to come alongside me because it's tough. And then we've got Mind and Sane. And the other ones I would recommend, if you are interested in the ACT approach, besides the app, which is fantastic, so there's a Living Your Life with Cancer and ACT approach, which Claire and I, who's my colleague in Velindra, wrote, which is a really practical self-help strategies of how to do this with audios and examples. There's the Mindfulness app from Velindra. Have you seen that? That's really helpful. It's got lots of really helpful relaxation strategies on there, but also mindfulness based on the mindfulness group. And then the books, I would also recommend The Reality Slap, Living with the Enemy and Facing the Storm by the fantastic Russ Harris and Ray Owen. The thing I want you to be left with is that your mind is acting beautifully. It's doing exactly what it should be in the situation you are, but it's not doing it necessarily helpfully for you. And learning that, and because people often say, am I going mad? Is there something wrong with me? Absolutely not. It's about that you haven't yet developed the skills to be able to use your mind wisely, coping with the ongoing challenges and watch and wait that you're facing. And it's really important to hold that because people can feel quite blamed and upset and frustrated with themselves. And it's just a normal response to what you're dealing with. Is that okay? Thank you.